an LSA and also a TA. So I work with my LSA work is I work with a child who's got visual impairment. So we do braille and things like that. And then the other part of my role is I'm a TA in year 5. So I'm just generally in the class helping out with the running of year 5. Really.
How's your week split then? Do you spend so much?
I do. I spend it's 3 days as TA and 2 days as LSA.
LSA.
Yeah.
Does the child have another LSA that they?
She does. Yeah, we marry because it would be too much to do it as, because I've done it in the past. I did a full year and it was too much. So we now do half and half. So that's much better.
Did you know about Braille before? Have you
I learnt it. We learnt it with her because I've worked with her since foundation. She's now in year 5.
Oh, how nice!
So she's just reached double figures. She's just got to 10.
Oh, will that be a bit sad when she goes?
Oh, it will be incredibly sad. Incredibly. But I've worked with children before and they've moved on. And you do see them around and you hear about them as well. So that's lovely as well. So yes.
How long have you been with the school?
I've been associated with the school for 12 years because both my children have gone through.
Oh, okay.
My daughter's now 16 and my son's 13, so they're in secondary and in college as well. But I've worked here for 9. So at first I started I was a lunchtime supervisor.
Okay.
And then did a little bit of work in a classroom in the class, and it snowballed from there. Now I'm full time working in the class.
Did you, before you had your children, came here as a lunchtime supervisor, were you involved in education?
No education, not at all. No, and it's just sort of, I've always liked working with children, but it sort of opened many doors to me when I had my children, really. Yeah.
So it's been a nice place to sort of build a different sort of bit of a career.
Yes, and I've only ever worked here though as well. So it's just a really lovely community, and you've seen people grow and come up with you as well, and I've had colleagues who've retired now who've been my mentors, and now I seem to be doing it for others as well, which is lovely, and we all help each other. This is a thing, isn't it? You just help people out.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. How would you describe the school community here?
Oh, they're just lovely. If you could go. Lots of people who walk through the door, because we have, with my work as an LSA. They say how welcoming it is. The ethos of the school is lovely. You can ask anybody anything, and they will help you. And it's just so welcoming. And you walk in, you want a cup of tea, and everyone's the same. And I have with the visual impairment teachers with the child I work with, she said, not every school's like this.
Oh really?
Quite often sit in the car park and have their lunch. But if they have an appointment with us, they come and sit in our staff room and eat their lunch and have a cup of tea and and chat, which it should be. That's how it should be. But not all schools are like it.
Why do you think this school is that way?
I don't know. It's from the top. It's from Mrs. Hardy. She's a warm and welcoming person, and it just oozes through the school. I think the warm and welcome, the presence of everything. It's just very welcoming. Yeah.
So the school's in a unique position at the minute with the fact that Joy is retiring, and you just talking to anybody, that Joy is such a central part of this school and a central part of the community. So, how do you think that might change?
The dynamics of the school is definitely going to change, but I don't think it's going to change so much. Yes, Joy is in the centre of it all, but the next, when you're going down the chain of command, Helen Francis is as is warm and welcoming. So it will change. Obviously, the dynamics of the school will change, but I don't think it will change terribly. But I hope it doesn't anyway, because it would be very sad if it did.
Yes. Just some questions on my computer. So, because you've been here for the school and your children came here, do you think the school community's changed over time, or is it always?
Well, I remembered it with the head before Joy.
Oh, do you?
And he wasn't a part. He didn't feel a part of the school, not like Joy. Joy was. He was never around. He was never really accessible, as Joy is. She always knock on my door if you need me. But the previous head wasn't. He was quite aloof, I suppose. Really, he was never around.
And did you experience that as a parent and as a worker?
No, just as a parent.
Just as a parent.
Yes. Yeah. So we were here when Joy took over.
So how did that then change for you? For you, it's interesting because you've been a parent and working with. was because Joy was here before then, wasn't she?
She was actually it was the first year my daughter was here in foundation, and Joy was her foundation teacher. So that was a big change for my daughter. It was Helen Francis came in, she was a very different teacher. And yes, yes. So that's how it affected us more, is that my daughter's going, I don't like, she's not Mrs. Hardy, that sort of thing. And I said, well, teachers are different. And she did, she warmed to her and she loved her in the end. It's just, that's how children are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what are the current challenges then, do you think, for the school community or the school in general?
Well, it's a terrible thing, but it does boil back down to funding and things like that we don't have enough resources and things like that. You very often find that you've got teachers dipping into the pockets, TAs dipping into the pockets quite often, which is not the way to be, but we don't mind. Well, within reason. Yeah. Within reason. But it's funding. I think is the main thing. We are being starved of money, like so many other departments and and things like that. But it's just, I think of it all, that's the one that worries me. If I go to bed at night and you think, well, have I got a job next year and things like that. And that's the only thing that really worries me about being within the school.
And that's that sort of wider education issue of how schools are being funded.
Yes, and how the funding and how we have lots of executive heads and things that are heads of 2 or 3 schools and things like that, and that would be very different and things, And I think that's hovering. I think that may well happen, and it's venturing into the unknown, really, isn't it? That's the thing.
Did you like the fact that the school, as from the point of view as a parent, when your children came here, why did you choose this school? What was it about?
Well, I have my grandfather was born in Queniborough.
Okay.
And he's buried up at the church as well. So there's that sense of that sense. I was born in Syston, which is only a few miles away. I moved to Wixton for a while, came back, and then when I decided to start a family, I thought I want to come back to my roots, and with the ties to Queniborough, and that's why I chose. Luckily enough, we got into the school as well, and that's why I chose it, because there's a family history here.
And you like that sort of sense of
I
community?
do. I like it. I like to think that probably my granddad's looking down on me thinking this is nice. And when we go up to the church, you feel a little closer to him as well, because he's there as well. So, and we go up there very regularly anyway, and things like that. So it's just very nice. It's nice. It gives me a sense of peace. Yeah. It's nice.
But you are part of that. It's that the wider community feeling as well. So your children came, but you are part of that. Yeah.
And another thing as well with both my son and daughter, they stayed together for we only have one intake of one class, but my daughter they were all put into different tutor groups and things like that, but all the way through they stuck together. And I think that's an amazing thing as well, because that doesn't always happen. Children grow apart, but they were always there for them. And with my son's there now as well, and they're there for each other. The Quenny boys and the Quenny girls, we call them.
And that's transferred into their secondary school, those friendships.
Yes. Yeah.
When I've spoken to a couple of parents, actually, this is more a parent question than a work question, that there is a concern, seems to be when they go to the secondary school. Did you have that?
Oh, good. Oh, yes, you do worry. There's things you can't, it's just loosening the ties a little more, isn't it, when they go to secondary and things like that.
And this is get the impression that that parents that have got children here now are still worrying.
Yes,
because
I'm still in contact with a lot of them. Yes, a lot of stuff that we go and socialise.
Yeah, but I think it's almost a little bit of worry that this is such a small, nice community that you're letting them out into
that big bad one.
Yeah, and it seems to sort of spark a few concerns that you've had, a real sort of strong sense of community here, and like you said, their friendship groups.
They still look out for each other now, which I think is quite rare and it's lovely.
And do you think that's because of
I do
honestly
think
fosters those
they look after each other. You do look after each other, and it's grown and carried on, which is fantastic.
And that's sort of part of the school to help form those bonds.
Yeah.
Do you have much connection with parents within your role?
Oh yes, yes. Obviously, with the little girl with the LSA, yes, you speak quite often.